I'm David Allen Miller, and that was Leah Yun playing The Flight of the Bumblebee. And I'd like to welcome you all to a musical encounter featuring the harp and a couple of other wonderful instruments from Los Angeles. As assistant conductor of the Los Angeles Philharmonic, I conduct many young people's concerts, so I feel right at home here with all of you young people. Does anybody here know what a musical encounter is all about?
An encounter with music?
That's right. Any other thoughts on it?
A group of young people trying to get along with instruments?
That's a very good answer indeed. That's right, a musical encounter brings young people and music together so they can meet and get acquainted. We do that by inviting young musicians to play for you and answer all of your questions. It isn't difficult to think of questions. All you have to do is listen to the music and the sounds of the instruments and watch how these young people play. To make it even easier for you to think of some good questions, we're not only featuring the harp today, which is a string instrument played by 13-year-old Alexandra Shin, but two other instruments that also have strings: the piano, played by 9-year-old Leah Yun, and the violin, played by 9-year-old Lila Josefowitz. So audience, now your work begins. Listen and watch very carefully for any differences or similarities between these instruments, starting with Leah as she plays a sonata by Mozart. Now, everybody, it's question time, and your turn to ask Leah any questions you want, either about the piano, or about herself, or about her studies. Are there any musicians here? Anybody play an instrument? A few? Just one or two? You used to play the piano, didn't you? Yeah. Uh-huh. And what do you play? Piano. Oh, great. So there are going to be some pretty intelligent questions. So come on up to the mics quickly and quietly, and let's see what kind of questions we have. Yes?
What are those pedals for?
Well, this right pedal here makes the sound go longer. For instance, if I put, I press this pedal, the sound would keep going.
Now, if you do it without pressing the pedal down, what does it sound like?
It's just normal.
And then when she takes her hand off, it stops, right? So that's what that pedal does. And the other one is a...
It's a unicorda. It's called an unicorda, and it makes a sound like soft, so it
Just-
doesn't really go. It just stops, but it's small.
Makes the sound very soft. So that's what those pedals do. You have another question?
Yes.
Yeah, Miguel.
What makes the sounds of the piano?
What
Oh,
makes
wait, what?
makes the sound?
Yeah.
You want to explain what makes the sound?
Well, they have all these dynamics, and you have to make it either loud, you get it louder, you get it soft, or you really feel what you're playing. It just doesn't come itself. You have to press the key the way you want it.
Why don't you tell us, did you also mean how does the piano itself work? Is that what you mean? Or
Yeah.
yeah. Can you, it's hard to see back here, but do you want to describe what's back in here?
Well, they have these hammers that hit when they hit the note down on the keyboard. These hammers
Hit the string, right?
hit the string.
You've got all these strings back here. Afterwards, maybe you'll come up and see all how many, there are a couple of hundred strings in there, right?
Right,
And when you press a note, the hammer hits the string and it makes the sound.
right.
And that's the way it works. Another question. We got a whole bunch of questions over there.
Do you play famous songs on the piano?
Famous numbers.
Like pop or something? No, I've never played pop before. I only play classical.
Question.
When you play, do you feel nervous?
No, I've never felt really nervous before.
That's lucky, because some people get nervous. Okay, I think that's about all the questions we have time for right now. So why don't we go on, and we'd like to ask Leah, now that we know so much about the piano, why don't we have her play another piece for us called an encore. Thank you, Leah. Now we're going to try something we've never done before on these musical encounter shows. Does everybody have one of these drawing pads? Just about, huh? And you've got marking pens too? Great. Well, what I want you to do, has anybody ever noticed that listening to a piece of music is very much like looking at a picture? Except that instead of seeing with your eyes, you see it with your ears. So, when Alexandra Shin plays a piece in a moment, what I'd like you to do is let the sound of the music draw a picture for you and just put it down on the piece of paper. And then afterwards, I'll call some of you up and we can see what drawings you've come up with. Now, don't draw a picture of Alexandra playing the harp. Draw a picture of what the music makes you think of. Are you ready? Ready to try it? Good. Okay, I'd like to introduce Alexandra Shin and her sister, Christina, who will be accompanying her on the piano in the Handel Harp Concerto. Well, while we were listening to that wonderful harp music, we went around and got a few of these incredible pictures that you've drawn. So what I've done is invited some people up to tell us about their pictures and what they were thinking of when the harp was playing. Maurizio, why don't you tell us about your drawing?
Storm.
It's a storm. Uh-huh. Sure looks like a storm. That's great. Now the next one is Rina and Susel.
And it reminds us of nature.
Ah, of nature. Okay. And then next we have a very interesting one. Can you all see this one here? Seems like there's a lady here and a rabbit. Gentlemen, can you, Raul and Alessandro, can you tell us what this is about?
Yeah, about a lady trying to make the rabbit dance with her.
Oh, to make the rabbit dance. I can hear that in that piece. Now here's another one. Salvatore, what is that?
Something like electricity.
Like electricity. Oh, that's very good. I certainly hear that. And here's our last one for now. This is Laura's. And why don't you tell us a little bit about it, Laura?
I thought about real soft music.
And that's a horse there on top of clouds, is it? Yeah, that's very beautiful. Okay, well now it's time to ask Alexandra some questions. So come on up, and Alexandra, why don't you come on down? And Miguel.
What are those pedals for?
Oh, these pedals? These are to move the strings into sharps or flat soundings. This is a natural.
Watch.
And you put it down to make it a sharp. And then you put it all the way up to make it a flat sounding.
And quite a lot of pedals there, huh?
Yeah.
How many are there?
7?
7, that's
Yes.
absolutely right. And do you know why?
No.
Why are there 7, Alexandra?
There's 7 strings in one octave. And there's one for every single string here.
So
in
in
the
a-
one octave, that is.
In a sense, there's a different pedal for each note that she plays. Let's ask another question here. Nancy?
When you play the art, do your finger hurts?
Sometimes they do. Most of the time they don't, but I've gotten blisters on my fingers also.
It's a good question. George?
How come they have different colors on the strings?
Okay, on these, it's kind of hard to tell which string is which, and so they color-coded them. So all the red ones here are C's, and all the black ones or purples are F's. And the rest you could figure out there.
How many strings does the harp have?
On a concert grand like this one, it has 47. On smaller sizes, a little bit smaller than this, about that tall, has 46.
And we've got one here to show you, which is quite different. Have you all seen this?
This is a folk harp, and I'm not sure how many strings it has. 21 strings.
So that's a little less than half, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you play that for us and let us hear what it sounds like? It's pretty. It's a lot it's a lot higher sound, huh? Another question.
When you change those things in the top, does the music change? The string?
These little pegs up here?
Yes.
This is the tuning. On the piano, a tuner tunes all of your keys for you, and you really have to tune it. On the harp, it's much different. You have to tune it whenever it goes out of tune. For instance, this is a C in regular tune. If it goes out of tune like that, or higher, then you have to tune it with your tuning key right here.
So that key adjusts the sound of the notes. And when you see a harpist, they spend a lot of time tuning that harp. Yeah, again.
those things on the top for?
These?
Yeah.
Oh, these are they're called discs. And these,
Watch when she presses the pedal. Did you notice that it changed the disc? Why don't we save our questions for a little bit later and go on right now, now that we know more about the harp, and hear Alexandra play another selection for us. What would you like to play, Alexandra?
I'll take an excerpt from the Impromptu Caprice by Pyrenees.
Okay. everybody, last but not least, the queen of the orchestra and one of the most beautiful instruments of all. Do you know what I'm talking about? What instrument I'm talking about? What am I talking about? Violin. That's right, the violin. And we have Leela Josefowicz here. Now, we've had other violinists on the Musical Encounter series before, but we've never had anybody as young as Leela. She's 9 years old. And Leela, what would you like to play for us today?
I'm going to play Halam Zoba Latin by Hubai.
Now, is that incredible or what? Did you like that? Yeah, great. Well, I think it's time for some more questions. Yes, Nancy?
What are those black things?
The black things?
The black things up here, you mean?
Mm-hmm. These are called pegs, and you adjust the pitch of the strings.
So you can make the strings go higher or lower by twisting that peg up there.
You know how to call that, the white thing in the...
This?
Yeah.
Does anybody know do you know what that's called, everybody? It's called the bow. And you see how she uses it. She puts it across the strings. And if you didn't put it across the strings, what would it sound like if you just hit the strings? Will you show that for us? See, that's a different kind of sound. But when you use the bow, what does that sound like? See, so it's a very different way to make the sound. And violins and cellos and violas and basses all use that bow. Not like the piano, which uses keys, or the harp, which you just use your fingers on the string, right? One more question? Yes?
I forgot.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap up the questions. So you see, each of these instruments is a string instrument, but they all do very different things, and they all have different numbers of strings and different ways of playing them. In fact, if you look at the harp, does that remind you of the shape of anything? Yeah. What does it remind you of the shape of? A swan? That's nice. I'm thinking of a shape of something right here in the studio. Does it look anything like anything else in the studio? Yeah. Very, very right. If you notice here inside the piano, it looks very much like a harp tilted on its side, right? You have been a sensational audience. Your questions have been very intelligent, and your drawings were all very, very beautiful. I hope you all enjoyed this musical encounter as much as I did. Did you? Yes, good. I'm glad to hear it. Well, we look forward to seeing you again, and we also look forward to hearing much more about Leah and Alexandra and Leela as they continue their exciting musical careers. What better way to close this concert than to listen to Leela play Perpetual Motion by Carl Bone. This is David Allen Miller, hoping that you will encounter music in your lives every day.